I'll talk and record properly shortly, but I've been so looking forward to meeting you that you've actually given me a big problem, because with a journalism background, normally quite good at focusing conversations, but with you, I'm just like, I don't know where to begin. There's just so much. So it's going to be a bit of a meandery conversation,
I
probably, but
love it.
sometimes they're the best ones. That's all
They're the
right.
best ones.
So
They don't look like they're scripted. They're just talking from the heart. That's all we want to do.
that's what it's about. Thank you. And to kick off the podcast, what we would love to do is, rather than open it on me, we'd love to open it on you and your voice and a story. And so I'm going to ask you a bit off the cuff here, but is there any story in particular that really comes to mind, that really chimes with you? And maybe it's about a learning moment, it's something about the work that you've done in terms of change, culture, anything that really strikes you about leading people and leading an organization that you think needs to be out there?
Well, I think one area, Kate, might be, the aha moment I had when I was on the flight to Sydney around, really realizing that great organizations are not just about strategy and some ego-based leader. It's about the people and how do you build that. So if I know I think I sent you a pre-copy of the book. You may have read a little bit about that, but maybe that's where I start around, that flight to Sydney, that 38,000 feet aha moment.
Beautiful. Let's start with that one. Thank you. Tell me about the
Okay.
aha moment.
All right. Are we, you want to start now?
We are rolling. You go for that.
Okay,
Be
cool.
great.
All right. So it's not very often you have a 38,000 feet aha moment, but I was traveling on a Qantas 747. I was somewhere over the South Pacific Ocean at 38,000 feet, 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was probably the only one with that little shiny light that lights down from the top of the head of the aircraft. And as you do when you travel a lot, you read. And at this stage, it was early in my career as CEO at WD-40 Company. And although I was very confident that I knew what we needed to do to execute a program to make end users who needed our product aware of it and make it easy for them to buy, the thing that was always around in my head was, how do you build a culture, which I would now describe as one where people belong, they feel they mattered, and they could make choices. And I didn't know how to do it. So I read something. The first thing I read was attributed to the Dalai Lama. It says, our purpose in life is to make people happy. If you can't make them happy, at least don't hurt them. And I thought, yeah, wow, that's pretty interesting. I wonder what that would look like if we really tried to do that in a business culture. And then pretty soon afterwards, I read a quote from Aristotle that was, pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. And I went, that is so true. I know personally that if I really like doing something, I really am better at it than if I don't like doing something. And the number that was, swelling in my head at that time was the horrible engagement scores that were, uh, being shared for companies where, the majority of people were either disengaged or actively disengaged at work. So that kind of was, wandering through my head. I got back to San Diego a week or so later, and I was reading something in the local newspaper, and it talked about a master's degree in leadership at the University of San Diego that was put together by Dr. Ken Blanchard, the guru of servant leadership. And this is 1999 that I'm talking about. And I thought, I need to go to that information session and find out. And Ken spoke and he said, the problem with most MBA programs is they only get people in the head. We've got to start getting people in the heart. And this master's degree over the next 2 years is going to share how we can actually not only have people motivated through the strategy of an organization, but truly about how we motivate people through their heart. And I went, that's it. I'm going. So that was really the start of this journey. And as a very new CEO of a public company, I went back to school and I did my master's degree in leadership. And Ken Blanchard and I became very dear friends. I ended up being on the board of his company for 10 years. We wrote a book together, and he is truly my mentor. and someone. And in fact, he wrote the foreword to my new book, Any Dumbass Can Do It. So, Kate, that was the beginning story for me. Aha moment at 38,000 feet at 2 a.m. in the morning, somewhere over the South Pacific Ocean.
Garry Ridge, thank you. What a brilliant story to open up with. We're going to come back to that. And what we're really picking up on is the heart. And I cannot wait to talk to you. I read a brilliant quote about you. It's not every day you come across a CEO who aims to be the dumbest person in the room. Garry Ridge's take on leadership is as refreshing as it is rare. And that's from the author and professor Adam Grant. Now, Garry, you are putting me under pressure here because it's making me think I've got to try and be smarter than you, and I'm really not sure I can pull that off. But I would like to wish you a very warm welcome to the Strategy Story podcast. And this is a podcast about leadership, about storytelling, and yes, you've guessed it, about strategy too. So 25 years as CEO of WD-40 and one of the world's top 10 most admired CEOs. Garry Ridge, I have to ask you, did you have a strategy?
Well, let me tell you that I am the dean of dumbassery. Um, and did I have a strategy? Well, I think we had a strategy as a business, and my people strategy became more aware to me of how powerful it could be if I was just able to accept the fact that I was probably wrong and roughly right in most circumstances, and I needed all the help I could get. And that takes a little bit of getting over because you're the CEO of a US public company. Oh my gosh, does that mean you're the corporate royalty and blah 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 and all of the pressure it puts you under? But at the end of the day, what was very clear to me was my role, my opportunity was to help unlock the absolute magnificence of the people I had the privilege to lead. And that was really the strategy that carried me through those 25 years. Is I was very, very sincere about the fact I need all the help I can get. And it's amazing when you ask for help and people feel that it's genuine, how willing they are to do that and how rewarding it is for them. A lot of people think that this culture thing is all about pizza, popcorn, and parties, and it's not about that at all. This is simple. It's not easy. And the thing that I found out is time is not your friend. It's about consistency. Simon Sinek in his book said that that culture was uh, values plus behavior, and I added to it and I said, Simon, it's values plus behavior times consistency.
I love that. Thank you. Really, really good. Really good. Lots of things to be thinking about there. Um, I really love your use of language. You use terms a lot like belonging, tribe, love, care, all these kinds of things, which I think should be used a lot more in organizations and business, but aren't. Where has that come from with you? Where has that understanding of that importance and to bring that into culture come from your own experience?
Well, sometimes I think that people camouflage issues with confusion to make out how smart they are. And I really believe that, one of the key ingredients of a great culture is transparency and simplicity. So, why not use words that really do communicate what you really feel from your heart? If I talk about, caring about people, it's something that if care is we love and care about our people enough, not only to reward them and applaud them for doing great work, but we're brave enough to redirect them when they're not playing the behavioral game that we know is so important within the organization. And unfortunately, Kate, in a lot of circumstances, we're not brave enough to do that because we're protecting our own comfort zone at the expense of other people's development, because it's really tough to do that. And then I love the word candor, but if I say, we're going to be candid in an organization, what does that mean? Well, I think you have to describe what it means. And to me, it's no lying, no faking, no hiding. Now, it's clear what it is, because I believe in organizations, most people don't lie. I believe they fake and they hide because of fear. So let's remove fear and let's say, and let's be open in a conversation. Are you faking and hiding here because there's something that you're afraid of? If you are, let's talk about it. But if I just say I want you to be candid in an organization, what does that mean? So I think it's not only the words, but what's below the words that are important.
And that little summary that you've given us there are kind of ways of behaving, aren't they? They're ways of, like, they're kind of the rules of the game, if you like, for us all to communicate and work as a team together, which I think is like such a beautiful thing to be able to bring into a team. I'm really interested in your work on values, which is, we do a lot of work with folk on values, and values are tricky because they're not a few words on the back of a lanyard or a poster up on a wall. That's not values work. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you did in WD-40 with
Yeah.
values,
So to
please?
me, values are there to protect you and set you free. And a lot of people think values are barriers. They're not, they're freedom gates. So, number one is define clearly what the values are, establish actionable principles for the organization for what they are. And then something I learned from Ken Blanchard that is so, so, so important is make them hierarchical. In other words, not every value should be equal. There should be a number of your values that are more important than others, so that when people are making decisions based on the values, they don't cherry pick the value because of the circumstance. And let me give you an example of that. The number one value we have, and I believe is they still have at WD-40, is we value doing the right thing. Our number two value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. Our number six value was we value sustaining the WD-40 economy. Now, if those values weren't force ranked, people might make uh, profit driven decisions based on our number six value that isn't necessarily doing the right thing or creating a positive, lasting memory. And I'll tell you a little story, seeing you love stories. You could be working in the supply chain at WD-40 company, and you're responsible for making decisions around procurement of ingredients that we put in our product. And someone comes to you one day, a vendor, and they say, Kate, I'm going to make you a hero today. You're a public company. Shareholders, are very focused on financial results. And I wouldn't be surprised after you make this decision, Kate, if you don't get promoted. And Kate says, well, tell me more. Well, I've done some analysis on, one of the ingredients you use, and I have a replacement for that analysis. And I've done the math around this, and I believe if you replace, ingredient A with my ingredient B, you can drop $4 million to the bottom line. Kate, are you excited about that? Are you going to run up to your CEO's office now and you're going to get a high five? You're probably going to get an Employee of the Month award. The shareholders are going to love you. And Kate said, that's really interesting. Tell me more. Well, just one thing that I need to share with you, Kate, is that um, you need to just put a little warning on your can after using this ingredient. But don't worry about that. It's not illegal. As long as you disclose this, it's fine. And some of your competitors do it anyhow. But this is $4 million. This is big money. And Kate says, tell me more. She said, well, you have to put what's called a Prop 65 warning, which basically says ingredients in this product are known in the state of California to create cancer and Kate says, well, sorry, I'm not going to do that. Kate, it's $4 million. You're a public company. Yeah, I know. But our number one value is we value doing the right thing. And we have a mandate in the company that we're not going to have any cancer-causing chemicals in anything we make. And our number two value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. And we're very confident that cancer doesn't create any positive, lasting memories. So I'm gonna say thank you for caring about this, but we're not going to do it. Kate, it's $4 million. You're a public company. Your profit is so important. I want to speak to some more people in the organization. Kate says, you can speak to anyone you want. In fact, go talk to the chairman of the board, and guess what? You're going to get exactly the same answer. So there is a stage where, or a situation where the values protected and set someone free. They protected around our objective. But Kate was free. Here's Kate. She is working in supply chain. She just made a $4 million decision. And when she goes and tells the CEO that she made a $4 million decision not to do it, she's going to become Employee of the Month because she lived our values.
Thanks, Gary. I'm pausing because one of the biggest challenges I've got with my business is folk understanding the value of communication and storytelling and why they should do more. So one of my biggest frustrations has always been communications generally tends to be at the bottom of the agenda. You have your meeting agenda, your work through finance. A lot of the time it's communications and then AOB. And because things run over all the time, you don't actually get to communications. And I find that really frustrating because if you've got an ambition or you just want your people to work together towards something, communications and connection is such an important part of that. And it's almost kind of sometimes it seemed like, oh, it's not that important, or it's a bit fluffy or a bit woolly. What would you say to speak to my experience of that from your side of things?
I had a funny thought when you were saying that. We'll get into a meeting and let's assume that communication is not important. So everyone sit here for 5 minutes and say nothing, all right? Nobody speak. And now we're going to leave the meeting. Did we really, really achieve anything? No, we did not. But I think also communication needs to be encouraged. And the way we encourage that is letting people bring themselves to those meetings and those interactions. We always started our meetings with, tell me something that you're really proud of this week. Tell me something that really excited you this week. What did you, I used to send a very regular, in fact, weekly communication out early on, and it had some very simple headings. What did I like this week? What did I learn this week? What am I thinking about this week? And how can you help me this week? And I used to send that out and, have people, I engage with them and help and say to them, I want you to communicate with me. So you're so right. But again, a lot of people don't set, they don't set the environment where people feel comfortable in engaging. The meeting's starting. Get in the room, quick. We've only got 15 minutes. Let's go. Bang, wait, woo, hold it. Come on. Let's engage as human beings first, and then let's get onto that.
Gary, thank you. I have one final question for you. I was going to ask you about the future and what you see as being the future vision that you're working towards now, but I think you've kind of summed it up there, and it's literally to make the world of work and the world a better place. What a beautiful contribution, and thank you, because we need more people like you saying these things, particularly in these times. I'm interested, you have lots of conversations around this. I'm interested in what you've got from this conversation, your reflections. Is there anything that are you going to go away and think about on the back of having this chat?
Yeah, thank you, Kate. You reminded me again of the power of storytelling. It's one of the things that, and the goosebump moments that I had speaking to you, which I found really delightful, were reminding myself about, the joy of our rituals. So yeah, I think again, life life is a gift. Don't send it back unwrapped. And I think that's something that I think is so important. And let's do a lot more unwrapping of our life and bringing joy to others. And my purpose is I help leaders build cultures of belonging where love, forgiveness, and learning inspire a happy, more connected world. That's my purpose. And again, from this lovely conversation with you, you've again motivated me to believe how important that is. So thank you for all you do, which is most important.
Garry, thank you. And you have left me with goosebumps now. What a brilliant way to end a fantastic chat.